Today I am talking to Alistair Macmillan from Ray White Wilston in one of the affluent Brisbane suburbs in Queensland. He's been in the industry for 25 years and his story is one of a success against the odds and something that you just have to hear to believe. Alistair, thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure.
Welcome. Now, Alistair, yours is an amazing story. You've been in the industry for 25 years, but you're actually still a young man.
Yeah,
So
young.
quite a lot that we want to unpack today, but I would just love to start by talking about your life before real estate, your upbringing, school life, and how you first of all went into real estate.
I've got two other brothers and went to boarding school. My father was a pilot and so I had to go overseas to fly. And so went to boarding school in about grade 6 it was, in primary school. Boarded there for a number of years, then went through to high school. I boarded at Toowoomba Grammar, which is a GPS school in Queensland. My parents lived overseas in Singapore at the time. I didn't excel at school. I just didn't do overly well at all. And if anything, it's actually had an adverse impact. So I actually got asked to leave for the school in grade 10. And so I had a younger brother at the same school at that time. So mum and dad took that as an opportunity to pull us both out of school. And then I went and lived in Singapore for a couple of years. Instead of going back to school, I actually went to an art college and did a diploma for 3 years before coming back to Australia.
So were you artistically inclined?
No.
No?
No, it's terrible. No, it was literally, that was the only grade at school that I had a C in or a B, was in art, and all the others was terrible.
Did you feel like you were in purgatory when you were over in Singapore, or was it just a great fun time?
Oh no, it was good. Yeah, no, I had a ball. Like it was, Singapore's a wonderful place. It was good to get me out of what I was used to.
Yeah.
Growing up there is awesome. Well, they're there for a few years. Mum and dad were there for 10 or 15 years. It was really, really good. And then good to come back to Brisbane as well.
So how old were you when you came back to Brisbane?
I was 20. When I came back to Brisbane, and I was trying to get a job. I didn't have a senior certificate. I was obviously finished school in grade 10 and I did a few odd jobs. So I got into sales and did door-to-door selling, selling phones, selling artwork, selling a number of different things. And then it was a family friend that said, you should really get into real estate. Yeah. And that's how I started at Ray White.
Yeah, so the selling part was good. You just hadn't quite found your market yet, so real estate.
I'm not sure if selling was good. It was just that I couldn't get another job without any education as easy as I could get into selling.
Yeah.
And so and then I guess it was a friend recommendation. And the perception was that real estate agents seemed to make fairly reasonable money, more so than selling art door to door. So it felt like it was a natural progression to get into that.
Something I'm going to learn about you as we go through our conversation today is that you have been incredibly hungry for success. It's something that's come through really clearly as I've talked to you. Did you have that when you were 20 and you were starting out in your career path, that hunger to do something meaningful and
I think even younger, very, very at a young age, I've definitely been very goal orientated, very motivated to succeed. Not so much at school, that didn't resonate with me, but certainly, very motivated. I was very goal orientated. So I remember when I was in primary school, I actually wanted to buy a Harley. So my first account was a HD account. It was a Dolomites account. Yep. And so I started saving money for a Harley when I was in grade. It would have been 3 or 4. And so, I bought it when I was 24.
Wow.
So that, and then it moved to different objects and different things. Yeah. So definitely motivated to try and get some form of income.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, to have the finer things in life. So, in comes real estate. So talk about your early days in real estate. What did that look like?
I started in real estate in late 99. I was quite immature. I had very limited understanding or experience of that process. To be honest, I was terrible. I was pretty ordinary. I was an ordinary agent. Started at Ray White Lutwich. I was there for a number of years and tried to sort of fumble my way through it. I probably wasn't offered the best training, or certainly nowhere near like what you get today. It's very much, you get thrown in there and it's sink or swim and good luck with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a real struggle.
Yeah. Here's the phone book. Use your phone. Off you go.
Correct. Yeah. No internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. No IP data. No realestate.com.
Yeah.
Like door knocking, all those types of things. But it was I don't regret that. It was a good way to start and given an opportunity.
Did you have a form of like a database structure that you built yourself in those early years?
No.
It was pretty scattergun.
No, it was terrible. Yeah. I had no direction, no guidance. I didn't know what I was doing. I was a few years there, and that's when I met Dwight Ferguson.
Yeah.
He was trying to buy that office, and the deal sort of fell apart. But I worked with Dwight for about 6 or 7 months, and then he recruited me into Ray White New Farm. And that was no better. I just didn't have the maturity required. I didn't have the dedication or the commitment. So I actually got to a point where I took time away. So I actually left the industry for about 12 months, and I was still hungry. I was, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but for whatever reason, that wasn't working out for me at that time. Went back into selling. I sold cinema advertising. I knew that wasn't the answer. I felt like I wanted to run my own business, and I was really motivated to do so. So at the time, I was actually looking at trying to buy a Subway business, and you had to give them money. You had to give them $2,500 to get the disclosure statement. I didn't have the money, so I couldn't get the disclosure statement. So that was struck that off the list. But I was literally going through businesses of what I could do to try and facilitate what I was trying to achieve. And it was at that time when I was away, I kept looking back at real estate and probably realized that there was no other industry that offered the opportunity that did, where someone like me with not a lot of education or certainly not a lot of backing could come in and, and work hard and be rewarded for that. Yeah, I probably grew up a little bit as well, matured a little bit, and went, I'm gonna get back into it. And at that time, Dwight had just opened up Ray White Stafford with another partner who was a mate of mine. I said to my wife, look, if I'll go back to Stafford, maybe if I can spend a few years, really getting some traction, getting some experience, I'll have the opportunity maybe to buy that business, because I didn't feel like Dwight and that business partner was a great fit, and I thought maybe they might not want to be there long term. So that was the motivation for going back. I was there for like literally 3 months, 6 months, and then they decided that they didn't want to own Stafford any longer. Yeah. And so the opportunity was given to me to, I wouldn't say buy the business, more take over the debt attached to the business. And that was in 2004.
Yeah, right. And so it's interesting, if you start real estate as an agent, bit of a false start, maybe a bad environment, maybe immature.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about your career, it's kind of gone in these like 6-7 year blocks.
Yes.
And it was, that time away probably helped you identify business ownership was the target for you at that time.
Yeah.
Really quickly.
Yeah.
Here is this opportunity. So what were those early years like? Like you said, you took on a debt.
Yes.
Floundering business.
Yes.
How did those first few months go?
Well, nothing more motivating than the Windsor disaster, and that's very much what it was like. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to run a business. But again, if you knew what it took, maybe I wouldn't have done it. So it was good, but in the business, it looked like, there was myself and one other salesperson. That was the business. We put on a receptionist, and then we weren't a business of attraction, quite the opposite. Like, people thought that we were going to go broke, which was probable. And so then instead of recruiting experienced agents, we just brought on green agents and just people of my demographic. So it was a pretty wild business. There were like 8 or 9 guys, all in their early 20s. It was a sort of very catch and kill mentality.
Lots of pictures of Harleys around the office as the motivation.
Yeah. I probably learned, as I grew older, it's probably partying with staff probably isn't the ideal situation, but you learn through that.
I mean, you've made several comments as well around, these people who you brought into your businesses over the years. They really did become your friends, right?
Absolutely.
Your best mates, a lot of
them,
which is great on one hand, but there's got to be that balance, I suppose. You made the comment, and I know lots of business leaders, when they start the journey, they do think, I'll just recruit. I'll recruit some existing agents, and that was initially How long did it take you to learn that that just wasn't going to happen and you had to develop it?
Pretty quickly,
Yeah.
because no one would meet with me. And I'm a hopeless recruiter, like absolutely woeful. So I decided that wasn't the strategy I was going to go down. So I had no other option but to just start either recruiting really green agents who had just entered the industry or grow from scratch. That was the priority for the business moving forward. But look, it was a huge amount of fun. It was really, really good, healthy energy in the business. But I think I ran that for, as you said, about 6 or 7 years at Stafford. And it was an okay business. It wasn't a great business, but I had really strong, high ambition to ultimately try and be a top 10 business. That was my goal. So I was trying to replicate what other top 10 businesses were doing and try and do that within my business. And so it was about 6 or 7 years after buying Ray White Stafford. I had some of these guys who were working with me who were absolutely mates. So they were some of my best mates, and they left. I had 2 or 3 of them leave all within quick succession, which was like, it was devastating. Like it was a real, confronting time because I couldn't understand why they left. So I met with them and just wanted some transparency and honesty as to why. And they told me the reason why they left was purely based upon the fact that they wanted to work in a more affluent area. They wanted to try and sell properties with a greater value. And I never realised this until then, but in real estate, it's virtually impossible to sell in. You can always sell out of a good area. So they told me this, and that made complete logical sense to me. And then I realised that my ambition of running a top 10 business was inconsistent with where our office was located.
Yep.
That's right or wrong. That was my thought process at the time, because it's going to be very challenging to recruit and sell higher priced properties. Literally within a few weeks of me finding that information out, I was actually the next day, I went and met with the owner of Ray White Wilston, who was like 3 kilometres away from our office. Yeah. We'd formed a deal that I was going to buy his business. He was going to keep the rent roll, and that all happened, I would think, within a month of me and being informed of their reason to move. That deal was done. And then we moved the business from Stafford to Wilston.
So during that period of time, that's 6.5, 7 years, you would develop it. Like everyone who was in your business, you developed.
Yeah, I don't think I recruited anyone who was experienced in that business.
So was that motivated by your experience of really having quite an underwhelming tutorial or like education? So do you think I've got to do better than this, or is it just within you think naturally to be a teacher and to be a mentor?
I think there's a great deal of satisfaction that you get out of developing and mentoring people. I mean, to this day, like we just had a celebration because I just sold the business, and a lot of ex-staff were there. And one of the things I get the most level of satisfaction out of is seeing ex-staff members go on and do amazing things in different industries, but they were with me for a period of time. And it's incredibly satisfying to think that I played some role, maybe small, but some involvement in their success. So it was definitely, I definitely enjoyed that component and aspect of it. But it was around that time when we transitioned to Wilston that we ran this very catch and kill orientated business, no repeat clients, no real database. And then it's sort of this new concept of having geographical data, developing relationships, long-term clients. That really resonated with me because I didn't feel like I was a natural, really high-energy leader like people like Hayes or Dwight or Pricey or others. That I didn't gravitate towards that. So this notion that you can have a structure in place where you're building really good relationships with clients for years before they have the desire to sell. To me, that made a whole lot of sense and a lot more sustainable. We moved to Wilston, and then we really entrenched and went all in on that sort of database model. So, and that was a real key sort of pivotal time for the business.
Yeah, and like it's interesting when you look at your own performance in sales. It sort of aligns with those movements. Like obviously you were getting more experience, you're getting more confident, you've moved to a better area, and your own sales was just skyrocketing at the time. So I suppose it's all of those things compounding together.
I think so. You're 100% right. I think that the key is being patient, right? Because I like there's nothing about my story or my journey that I regret. Like it was all. I feel incredibly blessed and fortunate that it all transpired, because the reality is that if I went into an affluent area, like if Ray Wilson was provided to me in 2004, it would have been an absolute disaster because I didn't have anything. I didn't have the experience, the skill. So I think that there's a lot of people just need to be patient. It takes time, you know, like, yeah, my figures got better, but, you know, I've been doing it for 25 years. So you naturally are better then than when you started. So yeah, a lot changed.
You know, if we stay with that sort of 6 to 7 year cycle, you then hit another period where you kind of questioned if you were on the right path.
The desire was to be a top 10 business.
Yeah.
So we had a fairly large business. We probably would have had maybe around 30 to 35 staff in that time frame. We've been growing a rent roll, and then it got to a point where we sort of got top 10, and then I just lost a lot of energy and motivation around the business, and I was trying to understand why. And I actually had a meeting with Tony Walland, our CEO, and I said, look, I'm going to sell the business. I'm over it. I'm not enjoying it anymore. I've got a young family. I've got a wife. I'm not spending as much time with them. And I thought that was it. I was done. And I was going away on a surfing trip with Dan White, and which was perfect timing. Went away. He challenged me a bit on my motivation for selling because I told him. And then all he did was just question what aspect of the business or that I disliked the most. And it was actually just I disliked property management. Yeah, it was the one component that I just totally disliked. I didn't like the staff that were operated in there, and I mean that in terms of that business was a direct reflection on me, right? So it was the lack of leadership and guidance and mentoring that I was providing to the business. That's the reason why I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like the tenants, and I didn't like any aspect of it other than the asset. So I made a decision that we were going to sell that off. And so I got back from the trip and went, well, why don't we just get rid of that and just keep holding on to sales? Well, that was the direction. So it took a year to get that ready. Took a little bit of time to sell it, but we sold around 600 managements, and that was like one of the best things that happened, because it was just like this massive weight was lifted off my shoulders. I got rid of all of the aspects of the business that I didn't like, and then I could just focus on what I loved, which was salespeople, and sales and training and developing staff and things like that. So that was the priority from that point. So that was. Again, it was about that 6 or 7 years, and that was 6 or 7 years ago. And if I hadn't done that, it wouldn't have given me the motivation and energy to go through, you know, until today.
Yeah, you kicked you into another gear of, like you say, fresh burst of energy. And there was like a core. You're like, no more staff. We've got the right people. We're just going to get better and better, right?
Correct. Yeah, it was a different focus. So it was a challenge, not so much on bringing on a whole heap of staff. We actually refined our sales team. Our sales team had matured and developed and experienced. A lot of the staff had been with me for 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 10 and 12 and 13 years. So they were really high performing agents, highly productive, didn't require a whole heap of as much energy and effort from me, which was really important. So it meant that I could focus a lot on selling and trying to, you know, double down on that and really start to push, pump my figures up.
Yep.
So it was a great period of time. But then the same thing happened 7 years after I sold the rent roll. I realized that I wasn't doing what I needed to be doing for the staff that I had. And that was a really confronting period of time, because I've got staff who have been with me for I think one was with me for 15 years. And she approached me and advised me that she wasn't sure that this was the environment for her now. And she felt like she was going to get better leadership outside of our office.
Did you know that? Or was that a kind of sort of slap in the face?
No, it was, I knew it, but it was incredibly confronting to hear someone say it. Because you sort of think, I'm masking it and I'm doing what I need to. But no, I hadn't enjoyed it for probably a year or two before she made that comment. But that was the real, and I'm so grateful that she had the courage to say that, because it just put a lot more urgency on facilitating getting out of the business or getting out of ownership, because it came to a point where I went, well, ultimately, I've had a really successful business, top 10, had this great team. And now it was at a point where they could all leave. And in my head, it was like, imagine me coming to work and it's just me and my whole sales team's gone.
The legacy was gone.
And that legacy would kill me, you know? So it was devastating. So So I was really fortunate. I approached Jason and said, mate, I'm in a bit of a jam here. I got to get this off my shoulders.
Yep.
I got to get rid of the business.
At that point, were you thinking you wanted to leave the industry, or you'd identified it was the weight of the business?
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't want to leave the industry because I just spent 25 years sort of felt like mastering what I'm doing. I feel really confident now in terms of listing, selling. I've stayed in the same marketplace by and large for 25 years. So everything gets easier the longer you're in it. Like, you don't need to prospect. You don't really, you get called in. You got strong market share. You got strong track record. So to just walk away from that, having spent, most of my life building it, to me just didn't make any sense at all. Not when I don't know what else I'm going to do. So no, leaving the industry was never an option. It was more so just leaving that ongoing responsibility of staff and training, which was a high priority.
Yeah, wow. And so you have managed just within the last few months to actually, almost out of the ether, pull this amazing deal together with young owners, new owners coming into the business. You're staying in the business. How's that feeling now? Now you've successfully made that transition. How do you feel about your career at this point?
I'm just, like I said, I'm so blessed and so fortunate that I've just had these amazing set of circumstances take place, and it wasn't actually me that pulled it together. Jason Andrews needs to be credited for it, because I approached him and rather desperately and said, hey mate, I need to get out of this business. Like, mentally, I'm not in a good place. I can't keep trying to mentor staff when my heart's not in it. And that was late in the year, like late last year, around October, November. He had two people that he felt would have been suitable buyers. Literally within 4 weeks, the deal is done. We settled 2 months after that. Yeah, so Jason needs to take a lot of credit for that. So he put that deal together, and it like, now walking into the business and seeing what they're doing with it, like, any element of doubt that I had about letting go of the business was absolutely dissolved at their first sales meeting. And I just went, wow, I'm just so incredibly thankful that they were there and I was able to do to relinquish that responsibility. And now to see the business grow, like, it is just unbelievable. Yeah. And there's a lot of pride that comes from that, because you spend, most of your life building a business. And to me, it was incredibly important that whoever took it on, because I obviously still want to work within it and help them, but it's important. It's my legacy, and I want to make sure that it's still well respected in the community, and I'm still proud to be attached to that business. And that's been the most rewarding aspect, is just seeing how well they're doing and how much bigger and better it is after just 1 month of them owning.
Yeah, wow. And that's given you another fresh injection of energy, right? Like, you're good to go for another 10 years.
I think so. Yeah, or at least 6 or 7. But no, I feel incredibly motivated now to keep pushing forward. I feel a whole lot more free, less stressed. It feels like I've spent these last 20 odd years getting to this place where finally it's life's a lot easier, business is a lot easier. I'm glad I didn't sell it, because I would have missed out on a lot of really strong markets over that period of time.
And you're not going to be fading off into the sunset like a part-time salesperson. Your sales business, you being an agent, is as strong as it's ever been, and looking like you will achieve heights that you've never seen before as a sales agent.
Yeah, I think so. It's a hard thing to turn off, right? Like, it's an inbuilt system where I want to say it's never enough, but yeah, I mean, you just keep wanting to get better, right? And if you're going to do it, well, you might as well do it to the best of your ability. And in our industry, it's incredibly hard to do it at 70%. You either got to be all in all the time, or you're out.
You're not going to make it.
Correct. So yeah, I'm keen to keep pushing forward and see how the next 8 years goes.
If 2024 Al could go back and talk to 1999, new real estate agent Al Macmillan, what advice would you give your young self?
Probably, me personally, I wouldn't have given me any. I wouldn't change any aspect, any component of it. Like you learn your best lessons through your mistakes, and I've made so many of them. I was young, I was immature, but that's all helped me get to a better place now. The only piece of advice I'd try and provide to sales agents is just be patient. I think there's this notion that we work in a great industry where you can have really good success and it can happen quickly.
Yeah.
But I feel like I was a rubbish agent for a long, long time, like the vast majority of those 25 years. So just be patient. It just takes time, that's what I would say to most.
Fantastic. What's something that we might not know about you?
You might not know about me. I'm probably a bit of a recluse, if I'm honest with you.
Right,
Yeah,
the introverted extrovert, or the extroverted introvert.
Yeah, like I don't, and that's what's been interesting is seeing the industry change and evolve so much. So when I first started, it was a very unstructured, not a lot of guidance. It was training, obviously, in comparison to what it is now, but certainly now it's a totally different. It feels like a totally different landscape with social media and it seems like this ongoing promotion of profile, and that's not me. That's not something that I gravitate towards.
Well, thank you for coming out of your reclusive state to talk to us today. It's been so good to hear your story.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.